What's up, Saintified? Welcome back to another episode. My name is Alex,
I'm Gabe.
and we are so excited to have you guys here. This podcast exists to encourage the saints and equip believers. And so, if you've ever felt either of those things, we ask that you would subscribe or like. It really helps put our content out for other people like you that love this type of content. We have a very special guest with us today, and we've known him for I want like maybe 6, 7 years, something like that.
It's been a while, huh?
And
Yeah.
so, if you guys we're presenting to some and introducing to others, Pastor Micah Steger. Dude,
What's up, guys? It's good to finally be here.
thanks for hopping on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Congratulations to 500. I don't know if I'm the first guest you've had, but I
You-
want to say congrats to 500.
Actually, yeah. You
You
are.
are,
Thank
yeah.
you so much. Yeah.
No,
Man, as you
yeah.
guys know, we've hit 500 subscribers, and that's thanks to all the love and support of each and every single one of you guys. I think the number is still 60% of our viewers are still not subscribed. Is that right, Alex?
I want to say it's about 50 to 60 or something like that.
Yeah. So if you think PM is dope, which we do, go ahead and subscribe while you're listening to this
Yeah.
episode. Or if you're
It's
listening on
just
Spotify. Yeah.
It's the principle of they may not be cheering you on, but they're always watching.
Yeah.
You know, so they got a lot of spectators, but a lot of
Dang.
contributors. Talk
Y'all
about
gonna let him-
spectating, get in the game.
Me
Support 'em.
personally, I would not let myself be called a spectator. Just me personally. So I would subscribe right away.
Exactly.
Come on now. Yeah, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to those who don't know you tuning in. So I would love for you to tell us a little about yourself, a little about like your upbringing and how you came to the Lord, and just like your time in ministry, like whatever you want to tell us.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'd love to give it just a perspective for anybody who doesn't know me. Born and raised in North Carolina. Grew up in a Christian home, but I was most of my faith was just borrowed from my parents until I got into high school. My testimony involved lots of crippling insecurity, anxiety, and that led me to trying to fit into different crowds, and went around from crowd to crowd to crowd to find someone who would just accept me, but I changed who I was to fit into crowds. So even the acceptance was an illusion. And at 15, running from everything I had heard about God, I got forced to go to a summer camp by my mom. And at that summer camp, it was Louis Giglio was preaching and Chris Tomlin was leading worship, if that
No
tells you
way.
anything about it.
Oh,
And
dude. You got
man, I
absolutely
remember
wrecked, huh?
I was that kid that made the trip so hard for my youth pastor. I'm sneaking out at night. I'm getting in all kinds of trouble. And that last night, man, I remember just sitting in my seat, no altar call or anything, but everything I had heard about God became real in a moment. And I just encountered him in my seat. And it was just the Holy Spirit. Again, no altar call, no one telling me what to do. I just knew he's real. And if he gave his life for me, I'm going to give my life for him. And there was just that 180 complete switch. And I came back home a different kid. I left old friend groups. I deleted numbers. I
Let's go.
it was one of those radical changes where, it was that Saul to Paul Damascus Road moments. And from there, I didn't know what a life of service to God looked like, but I just knew that I wanted to pursue a life that honored him. And then at 17, so I was 15 when this happened. At 17, I was at another youth camp. And at that youth camp, in the middle of worship, I had the first vision that I had ever had as a kid. And it was God showing me preaching to young people. So I knew at that moment I was called to preach. And so at 17, called into full-time ministry, went to my home church at that time, just had split and it was falling apart. And we got invited to a small church called Elevation Church. And we went on Father's Day weekend. I believe it was 2010. And we called it our home church. We started attending there. And that's where, when I graduated high school, I didn't want to go to college. I just wanted to serve my church. So I got an internship at Elevation, served there for 6 months as an intern in their creative media department. And got my first taste of what it took to make ministry happen. Bro, interning, 60 to 75-hour weeks,
Yikes.
Yeah.
hour commute one way,
No way, man.
putting in the work, bro. But it showed me like I had this idea. I glamorized ministry before then, and I realized, oh no, it's ministry is spelled
Mm-hmm.
WORK. Like we got to put in work to make this happen. And they were only 5 years old at the time, but man, they were still growing so fast, and so it was such a privilege to see it from that perspective. And then I got married to my high school sweetheart in 2012, and right after we got married, God called us to Dallas, Texas to attend Christ for the Nations Institute, which is where I got to meet both of you guys. And so I studied there for 3 years with the intent of being an evangelist and traveling and preaching. And in my last year, God just completely changed my heart to youth ministry. And so I graduated from the youth major. And as soon as I graduated from that, got my bachelor's and stepped into serving Youth for the Nations, which is the youth ministry extension at CFNI, Christ for the Nations Institute. And led that with Pastor Chris Estrada for a few years, and then got to step in and lead that from 2019 to 2022. And so we were to be there for 7 years at YFN, and then
Wow.
10 years at CFNI. Had all three of our kids there. We have a 10-year-old now, an 8-year-old, and next week be a
Amazing.
5-year-old, and 2 dogs. So we're not lazy or bored at all. We are
Definitely.
very active and a productive family.
That's amazing because
Yeah.
my wife and I are expecting our second, and even the conversation of a dog is like big no right now. So the fact that you have 3 and 2 dogs is amazing.
Dude, it's a lot. I'm not gonna lie. But you just get grace for it. I love watching my kids grow up with dogs. Like I think that's a great
Mm-hmm.
experience, is them having those companions, those friends. So
Yeah.
yeah. So even been in full-time ministry. After YFN, got to go to a church in Vegas and got to be the director of operations there. So kind of help facilitate the systems and policies, procedures behind the scenes. And then now we're planted at a church here in Southern California, Orange County, called Freedom House Church, serving Pastors Josiah and Pastor Josiah, Pastor Marie Silva, getting to be here. So we're campus pastors at our Irvine campus now, and then I oversee our Bible college at this church as well. So, it's just kind of like a little Cliff Notes version, ChatGPT summarized version of Micah's
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. You're
That's
keeping
so
busy,
cool.
keeping busy for sure.
It's been a very very the callings, everything has been active from glory to glory. So it's been good.
And you're going from Texas, solid Bible Belt culture down to California. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, in Vegas before. That's crazy.
That's a
That
crazy
was
switch.
yes. So I mean, growing up in the Bible Belt, North Carolina is the South. It's probably like the side of the Bible Belt, and then just going from there to Texas, that's the belt buckle of the Bible
Mhm.
Belt.
Yeah.
It's like the mecca of mega churches in America. And so going from there to Vegas, I think the biggest learning curve was learning that people don't have a generational idea of who God is or Jesus or the gospel. And so in the South, even if people don't practice it or believe it, there was at least a generation before them that they heard it from. So they heard about God. They had a praying grandmother. They had somebody in their life that introduced them to it. So I think that there was at least a concept anytime you would evangelize or start the discipleship process, there
Mhm.
was a concept of God, a concept of the gospel. Even if it was wrong, there was still some sort of foundation there. Getting to Vegas, Vegas itself, man, is a relatively young city. And so there's not generational Christians there. And so if
Mhm.
you're working
Mhm.
with evangelism or new converts, you can't just, there's Christianese. So you can't just use words that you could say in the South or predominantly biblical Christian areas
Yeah.
and expect them to understand it. So a great example, one time, man, I was talking with somebody after a service in Vegas, and they were experiencing just what was going on in their life, and I was able to discern, like, oh, that's spiritual warfare. It's just the increase of the enemies attacking your life. And so I was like, yeah, man, you're just facing spiritual warfare. And he was like, what?
No way.
Warfare? Like, what do you mean? And I'm like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, like I got to break this down. What is spiritual warfare to somebody who doesn't know? And I'm like, there's an obstruction of the enemy that is interfering with what God wants to do with your life, like a bad signal of Wi-Fi. And I'm
Yeah.
like really trying to bring this
Yeah.
down to a level that's
Man.
like, I got to strip any pre-conditioned idea of like what I would think this would be basic terminology, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So I think I that was a challenge, but it was a good challenge because it made me want to refine my ability to speak to anybody at any level.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's better to be in a situation where people don't have even like a wrong idea of who God is and what the spiritual world is and all this other stuff? Because you get to start from ground zero with them. Like, you don't have to tear down any wrong ideas. You get to just kind of build up from, hey, you're a sinner and this is the gospel.
Dude, it's such a great question, and I've wrestled with it for years because I got to experience both. And I think I lean towards I like somebody with a clean slate who doesn't know, just because what that offers is they don't know how to fake it. They don't know how to present a version of themselves that would be changing their behavior because they know that this is what a Christian's supposed to say and supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so I remember, like, again, dude, just raw experiences. I remember preaching one weekend, being able to, after the service, go out to the front and you talk with people. And a guy was like, just saw me. He's like, "Hey, you're the guy that just preached." I'm like, "Yeah." And he just goes, "Yo, that S word." It's like, "Yo, that was fire, dog." And I'm like, "Is that a compliment?"
You say thank you?
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, it was just like, it was such a raw, authentic form of this is that person and in discipleship and formation. And so I really love the authenticity of the state of a person when that's like they're not trying to present anything alternative to who they really are because they don't know any different.
That's
and
awesome.
So I feel like because I can't disciple you. I can't disciple the facade.
Yeah,
I can't pastor the version of you that you pretend to be. And so that level of authenticity really allowed me to, okay, this is where you're at. So let's talk about what's going on in your heart and not just be misled as a pastor because you know what face to put on when you're with me. So I think that's where I leaned. That's why I feel like I'm able to, not to say that I'm not effective in the Bible Belt and there's one better than the other, but I've been able to precondition myself in a culture that would be not Bible Belt and see fruit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So do you feel like it's the same in California now that it was in like Vegas, or what are some of the differences you kind of see in that environment?
I would say it's about the same. Yeah, the culture. It's what's the term? Post-Christian, or the post-Christian generation.
Right.
I really like how I heard somebody say this. I won't take credit for it, but the post-Christian status of many states or cities in America, you hear that word post-Christian demographic, post-Christian generation. I love there was somebody who said this. It was like, we should really use better language and say it's pre-Christian instead of post-Christian. And it's that mentality of it's only a matter of time before they all have an encounter with Jesus. And so I think that it's very similar. You're not in a Bible Belt, so a lot of you don't have generational Christians, but I would say where we are specifically in Orange County, it's a lot more conservative than what the rest of the country would see California as. And so, there's a little bit more of a Christian environment or religious environment here, especially in Irvine, California. That's maybe not Christian, but very religious. So hasn't been, if you go to different urban areas like San Diego, LA, the Bay Area, you would have a lot more progressive ideas and ideology, but it's so it's a little bit different, but it's still the same.
Yeah. And I think this is like a really good segue into kind of like what we're wanting to talk about for this episode of like transition. And just from like the brief summary of everything like that you've said so far, it seems like you've had to go through a lot of transition in your life. A lot of things have changed, and you've picked up some tools and some kind of I'm sure like even different habits you've had to adapt to, to adapt to different places that you've been in. So um like tell us a little bit about I know we met at YFN at Christ for the Nations, and so I'd like to get a little bit of how your transition was from there into, you went to your church in Las Vegas. And so uh I mean, as much as you like, I'd love to hear about like how you navigated transitions, or just even in general, like how you go about transitions and what you've had to learn about them.
It's great because I think a lot of times we just live life as it comes, and there's a quote by Soren Kierkegaard who says life has to be lived forward but can only be understood backwards.
Hmm.
And I don't realize how much I've had to deal with transition until I actually talk about it, because I find some people may never leave the city or state that they were born in.
Yeah.
And God's
Yeah.
literally brought us from the East Coast to the West Coast, man. At this rate, we'll probably be in Asia in about 5 years because we just keep going further and further
Yeah.
west. And
Eventually it'll
so,
come full circle, right?
yeah, it's just a matter of time, man. And so it's not that we had this, I didn't grow up in North Carolina like, dude, I can't wait to go to California. It was just living a life of surrender and the progression of how God led us. And I think, not to say that that is the definition of transition, because you could stay in the same region or even the same church your whole life, but you're still going to navigate transition, the transition of job
Yeah.
titles, the transition of relationships, the transition of assignments that God has for you. And
Yeah.
so I think that for me, the reality is being able to realize that we have to be basically live a life where we expect transition and we're not surprised when it happens.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, that just brings something to mind, and maybe be like before we go even further, and maybe this is probably a better way, like, or a better place to kind of start, because I feel like for me, I get really comfortable in a season, and it's a little bit hard for me to want to even accept that maybe I'm hearing something different, a transition coming. And I've heard a lot of people that have talked to me about their transition. It's like always this like, I guess what I'm asking is like, how do people get stuck in a season? What
And
are how do you can you tell you're stuck?
if I can add to that for a second,
Yeah.
because like I think when you hear the Lord call you somewhere, you feel secure in that space that he's called you, because you're so confident. Yeah, God, I heard you tell me that I'm supposed to be here. And so when you start feeling that he's leading you to a season, like to transition, you maybe start to, I don't know, me personally, I start to doubt, like, wait, did I really hear you right the first time? Is this the enemy trying to distract me from the thing the Lord's called me to? So I feel like in that, like, how do you get stuck? There's also the question of, man, am I sure that I'm hearing the Lord correctly?
Yeah. I think it's really important to identify that we have to first establish obedience to God is the definition of success. Because I think that a lot of times we'll look at something that's bigger or more numbers or that looks like growth on the outside and equate that to success. But
Mhm.
success isn't more numbers. Success isn't linear. It's cyclical. It repeats in patterns of growth, pruning, renewal,
Wow.
God reinventing yourself and
Yeah.
allowing him to reinvent you in different seasons to pull gifts that he has buried on the inside of you to the surface that he couldn't do if you stayed in the season that you're in. And so I think that reestablishing, or maybe just making sure you have the correct definition of what success looks like in a season, it's not numbers, it's not promotion, it's not a better package. It's just being obedient.
Mhm.
And I think that having that right definition is what's protected us for so many years. I mean, that's what brought us out of what we knew in North Carolina, never left the state, like never had any intention to, and
Yeah.
show up at a place called Christ for the Nations Institute. I thought that was such a cheesy name for a Bible college. I'm like, Christ for the Nations? Like, come on, and I was like, I had no anticipation of what was going to happen, but coming with an open hand and an open heart, um, and just being able to be obedient, that's been, I think, the secret sauce of our success this entire time, was just focusing on obedience. And the story I always go back to is Noah. Hebrews 11, it says that, I think the Message translation, so please don't crucify me in the comments. It's a great, I know it's a paraphrase.
Translation.
Yes, no, we're good. We're on the same page. That's not a translation. Anyways, I love how it's phrased. It says, by faith, Noah built a boat in the middle of dry land. And so and it never rained before. And here this man, because of a word from God, is building a boat in the middle of a place that's dry. And so if you had asked anybody during Noah's time, anybody who knew him that was in his neighborhood, hey, do you think Noah actually heard from God? They would have said no. Like nobody would have thought Noah heard from God, because what he was doing looked foolish, but faith is the willingness to look foolish.
Yeah.
God says he uses the foolish things to confound the wise. It was, he looked foolish until he looked faithful. And I think that's that same condition, that's that same tension that you and I walk in whenever we're walking in obedience, is that sometimes obedience to a new assignment will make sense. You're in a bad season. You're in a bad, unhealthy organization. You're in a situation that's tough and it's hard, but it's pruning you. It's developing you. It's not wasted. And then God opens up a door that's like, this is obvious. You got to take it. And then there's other seasons where everything is perfect. It's going right. There's nothing but positive about it. And you still feel the leading of God out of a season. And that's when you really wrestle. Okay, I know this is good, but is it God? And that discernment is, being able to distinguish the difference between good and God. And is this obedience, or is this my flesh? Is this the enemy? And I think that I would even say, man, I think that the enemy is okay with being promoted if it means he can promote you out of your destiny. He has no problem with you getting a better salary, a better package, better benefits, more influence, if it means he can promote you out of your assignment.
Dang.
So what
scary.
I'm hearing you say, like, a good opportunity doesn't mean it's a God opportunity.
Exactly.
And, when I've talked with people about, them moving into different things, it's always kind of like what we're talking about here is like, how do we know it's God? Like, how do I know that the Lord's leading me into this? And I think something that we can even pick up from Noah is like, he understood where the Lord had him. Like in my life, and what I typically tell people, and I feel like I brought this up in a different pod, but in order to understand the next season that God has for you, I would say you can't really do that without first having a full understanding of where God has you now. You have to discern your current assignment, because if you don't understand your current assignment, like you said, like anything could come, like a promotion could come, and it could look great and you take it and it moves you away from your destiny. It course corrects you away from what the Lord has for you. And it's because you weren't anchored in a word. You weren't anchored in the understanding that this is where God has me. And so I think that's in my perspective, I think that's like the first step in understanding when the season is up. You have to first understand what season you're in currently.
That's so good. Yeah.
So like, and I feel like this makes me think about your story a little bit, PM, because you were an intern at Elevation. What made you think I'm supposed to go to like middle of nowhere, Dallas, Oak Cliff, the hood for Bible college instead of staying here and being part of what's being built here? Like, was there that tension for you at all, or?
Yes and no. So let me answer. I'll go back. I really hit it, Alex, as far as you have to know where you're at. How do you know where you're at is God? You got to have a word. And I think it's why he says in the scripture that his word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. Jesus responds to Satan in the wilderness, man does not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And so a word from God is the most stable foundation we can step out onto. And so when you get a word from him, and it's not always going to be a prophetic word that you get, it's not always going to be the someone reads your mail. Sometimes I feel like that the word, a guiding word will either be his scriptures or for us that we've experienced is peace. We have followed peace. And so it doesn't mean that it's not scary, doesn't mean that it's not intimidating, but where there's been a supernatural peace that has led us and sustained us. And so just to answer the first question, as far as like knowing where you are and having a word, I remember we were at Youth for the Nations. We were just assistant directors at the time, and I got a phone call from a friend who I used to go to school with, and he had started a business, and it was thriving, man. They had like just unprecedented success. It had taken off, and he was making good money. And he called me, and he's like, "Hey, bro, I know we went to the school together. I know that you're working there, but I need someone like you. I need someone to oversee this division of my company. Name your price within 6 figures, and the job is yours. You can live anywhere you want to live in the U.S., bro." He's like, "I just need you. I need someone I trust." And I was not making 6 figures at the time. Okay. Not even
Thank
close.
you for
so
your
I'm
honesty.
like, I just put to make sure it's clear. And I remember thinking, dude, the Lord has heard my cries. He has caught every tear that I have cried, and he has held them until this moment. Like, he is faithful. I came home so excited. I'm like, "Babe, you'll never believe I got the offer of a lifetime. That house that you want to live in Highland Park is yours, girl. We're going to look at them today. That black on black Range Rover, yours, girl." Like, I'm just like, I'm like, dude, we made it. This is it. My faithfulness has brought me here.
Yeah.
Dude, her response was the most humbling, grounding response. So she's like, "That's amazing. What does God say?"
Oof.
And I was like, "Well, he hasn't spoken on the issue yet. Like, let's give him some time." I'm just being real. I'm like, let's let him speak. And she's like, "Okay, well, until he does, we're staying where we are. And until we get a new word, we're staying with the last word." And I think that's where a lot of people miss it, is that they'll make a move without getting a word. And we never got a word. We never got, man, I was so desperate. I was driving around in my car asking for God to show a billboard that would just take the job, Micah.
Were you driving around Highland Park?
I was driving around Oak Cliff because I didn't have gas money at the time to drive around to Highland Park. And the car I was driving at the time, too, would have gotten me pulled over quick because it was a 95 Caprice Classic. They would have called the cops quick. But that was a defining moment in our life, to where I don't know what my life would have looked like if I had taken that job, but I know that the word that I had sustained me, and it protected us and it preserved us. And so we didn't get a new word, so we stuck with the last word. And I think that right there will protect a lot of people from the wrong opportunities. There's a lot of people who will get promotions. Nothing against any positions that I would mention, but maybe there's a campus pastor that should have stayed a youth pastor. Maybe there's a youth pastor that should have stayed a junior high pastor, and it's promotion on the surface, but they never got a word on it. And I think maybe there's people that went from career, I don't know, being a dentist to pursuing something else without a word, and then it creates unnecessary tension in their marriage. And I think it's just being able to matter, not even just ministry minded people or ministry focused people, but just choosing to make decisions where man does not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And then just going back to what you said, Gabe, as far as, me transitioning from a place like Elevation to go to Bible college, I had a spiritual father at the time. I had a covering that I was submitted to. And this leader in my life, I know submission in 2025 sounds like a cuss word, but I just believed in the power of God using somebody that was a pastoral covering in my life to send me. And I trusted him enough to where even if I couldn't hear God from myself, I believe they could. And that's risky, because I know that it can be abused and it can be mishandled. But this person heard God for me and said, "Hey, I feel like you should go to this Bible college, that this is the next assignment for your life, and that what you need, you're going to get there." And so I moved me and my 3-week newlywed wife to a place. We had nothing, man. We literally had $700 in our bank account. We packed everything we had gotten at our wedding reception into the back of our hoopty of a car and drove overnight to make it to CFNI. And that was the word that got us there, man. And it wasn't, I didn't personally hear from God, but I had a spiritual father who did. And I trusted him enough to take him at his word and move. So that's what brought us out of the season that we were in into the new assignment.
So I have a question on that note because I think so. Described this peace that you guys had in
Yeah.
those transitions. Would you say that you guys were also confident in those transitions, or do you feel like sometimes we try to pursue confidence instead of just like trusting the Lord to bring us peace in those moments?
Um, I think that there's a difference between feeling peace and it all making sense.
Okay.
Because like it
Mm,
didn't. A lot of times our transitions didn't make sense, but it didn't mean that we didn't have peace. And
Yeah.
so to reference, our the transition from where we were in our previous season to where we are now, we had felt like God was speaking transition into our life. And we were in a great church, bro, a thriving church, thriving,
Hmm.
like amazing leaders. But it was like, we just kind of felt like both individually, man, feel like transition's coming. And we had no intention of that being the case. Like when we moved from Dallas to Vegas, we move with the mindset this is permanent. We're going to raise our kids here. We don't have a short-term bone in our body. Like nothing about it was to be a stepping stone. So we are locked in. And so when we began to feel transition, we were like, no, God, this was supposed to be forever. And brought it to our leadership. They confirmed it. They felt the same thing. And so we knew that transition was God. We just didn't know what was next. And it was literally the story of God
mm,
saying, Abraham, go into the land that I would show you, without knowing what the land would be. And
Yeah.
so we stepped off staff at our previous ministry without knowing what was next,
Dang.
because that's where
mhm,
peace led us.
Wow.
So peace wasn't remaining in stability. Peace was stepping out in faith when it didn't make sense. And
Yeah.
so I don't think that peace will always lead you into what, like, you think of peace, you think calm waters, you
Hmm.
think still waters, you think, oh, tranquility. It's like, no, man, Jesus spoke peace from the middle of a storm. And
Yeah.
so oftentimes you're going to find yourself in a boat that's very rocky and it's going to feel like there's chaos all around you, but you're with the one whose name is peace. And so it's
Amazing.
like, I think that can be a leading indicator as far as you stepping into a season or transition, with peace, is knowing that it may not look like the environment around you is peace, but you have peace on the inside of you.
Dude,
Um,
it's so cool. That reminds me, I was listening to Francis Chan's sermon, and he was talking about how he told his wife that he felt the Lord was telling him to sell their like really nice home, like their dream house. It's like, hey, I want you to sell this, and I want you to give more to the people of Uganda. There's a ministry he was connected with there, and he goes home and he tells his wife, and she's like, hey, this is my dream house, but if you feel the Lord is saying that, then we don't have a choice other than to sell it and give all that away. So they moved into like a tiny apartment in California, just the cheapest thing they could find so they could give more to this people group they had been connected with and the Lord had just tied their heart to. And you mentioned how your wife was the first one who confronted you, which is like, what is God saying about this? Can you speak to the partnerships you have in life, not just a spouse? Because some of what you're describing, I think a lot of people, including myself, I'd be like, yeah, this is so easy if you're single, if you don't have a family, and if you're not providing for people around you. But can you just speak to those partnerships in life, whether it's spousal or just friendships, who can kind of like help you in those seasons?
Absolutely. I mean, when we stepped out of this season, it's relatively fresh. This was less than 2 years ago. Um, I was we were determined not to move without God. I think it's the declaration of, again, going back to Abraham, no, Moses, sorry, whenever he was looking at the promised land and he told God, I don't want to go into the promised land unless your presence goes with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we knew that where we were at, God was closing the door, but we didn't know what was next. Until God spoke, bro, I was willing to do anything. Um, it didn't mean that I was going to sit back and just cross my arms and wait for God to provide. Like I was interviewing I was going to get a job like delivering food for DoorDash, Uber, Amazon. Like I was willing because I had 3 kids and 2 dogs, bro. They were in private school at the time. Like we got to cover things so it was like that. That's a huge sacrifice and an enormous risk that would be impossible without the unity, the strength that comes from being unified with your partner,
Mm-hmm.
your spouse in my situation. And so thankfully that tension was, God calling me to be the priest of the home, hearing from him, but not wanting to just move on my own accord. I'm bound with my wife. And so,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
hey, that we navigated it together. This is what I feel like God is doing, not making a decision without her, bringing her to the table, inviting her into the conversation. What do you feel like God is speaking? And so I think it's important for us to just acknowledge, like, man, especially if you're married, you have to navigate that with your spouse. And what I've learned, bro, is our wives are the most discerning people in our life, that they will
Mm-hmm.
hear God oftentimes way before we do. Like, I'll bring stuff to Yvette. She's like, oh yeah, God already told me. I'm like, what were you waiting on? Like, I'm just over here trying to figure it out. And she oftentimes, man, the Holy Spirit sounds a lot like my wife. And speaks to her, and I just trust that too. And so if there's been times where I feel like, man, I feel like God's telling me this, and she's like, no, that's not God. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it is. Like, the revival's gonna break out. She's like, let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see. And then I'm like, sure enough, time reveals, okay, yes, you were right, Yvette. You hear from God. So there's that piece of it, man. I think that your partner has to be involved with that process. You can't just go rogue and then just put your family, especially when you have that much responsibility, like kids and, I don't know, mortgage, rents, car
Yeah.
payment, and
I love
just
that you use the
abandon it.
Moses example too, because even when he's like leading the nation of Israel, it says that they went at the pace of the women and the children, which I think stands
Wow.
out to me in this situation as I think about how, you hit it right on the nail. My Holy Spirit sounds like my wife sometimes, and I'll have this like really deep conviction about something and a certain direction it should go, and she doesn't necessarily tell me she's prayed about it, all right, but she has this like this detector in her that like she knows when it's the Lord versus when it's like my ambition or something. And she's so
Bro.
quick to call it out with love. Like the other day, like I told you, we're expecting another kid, and I was like impacted by this mission trip group that came back from our church. They were in Kenya, and they said, if you want to sponsor a kid, it's just $35 a month. And $35, that's like you going out to eat 2 times. All right. Like you can change your life with just $35 a month. And that very day, I'm like sitting in the chair crying, and I'm like, babe, we got to sponsor a kid. And she's like, hey, I know you want to do this. Let's get home, reevaluate our finances, and then after that we can do this. And so like it took me like a week and a half, but I was like, oh man, no, you're so right. I would have jumped into this and I wouldn't have been blessing them or blessing us, our family. But it's just so funny that you brought that up, and I think that's great.
Bro, you said the word ambition.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge distraction from people's assignments, is that we will allow our ambition to elevate us out of our assignment.
Oof.
And I think because we'll get this idea, I'm going to do great things for God. It
Yeah.
looks Christian on the surface. It looks advantageous. This is going to bring him glory. And it goes back to the principle of God doesn't care how much we do for him. He wants us to do stuff with him.
Dang.
And that's the value of intimacy, is that it's
So
not just
good.
about the performative side of what you can accomplish on your own, where ambition can lead us, because our ambition will lead us into some messed up places, or it can lead us into some good places, but God did not lead us there. And
Wow.
so that's my ambition. I'm in the same place. I think a lot of us, we're driven by ambition, and then we'll disguise it with spirituality. And that's where danger happens, is because we'll allow our ambition to lead us to a place that's not our assignment. And so my wife has protected me from a lot of my ambition for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Shout out you.
Something
My
that
wife.
comes to mind is when you're in the middle of transition and even like your roles or your functions look different from the previous season, it can be very easy for that to start deteriorating at maybe like how you view yourself and your identity. And I just think of how important it is for your wife or those closest to you that know you, right? They've seen you in and out of season, and how important it is to let them speak into that and remind you of your identity and the placement you have in Christ, and how he's not done with you just because he was maybe done with what you were doing in a season, that you are still his child, that he still has a plan and a purpose for you. And the gifts that he's placed in you. It's not like going to waste because the season looks different. And
Yeah.
so I would love to hear you speak into that, just like how identity, how crucial it is in the middle of transition before and after, and while you're, how you're still figuring out everything. I'd love for you to speak to that.
Yeah, dude. I love that question so much. I think that it's coming from that vulnerable place where a lot of us, our identity is tied into what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And our identity we will associate or we'll find value in what we do, but we have to acknowledge that what got us here or what got us to our previous season may not get us to where God's calling us to go. And we have to acknowledge that where a lot of leaders fail and they make these mistakes is that they try to win in a new season with the last season's tool belt. And it's like
Yikes.
they
Oof.
try and
Dang.
and again, man, this isn't to throw
Yeah.
shade or anybody. It's like, it's not for someone to hear that, like, I'm not trying to criticize anybody, that I want to speak to the people that find themselves deep in that place of frustration. Like, why does it feel like I can't get any traction? Why do I feel like I'm constantly frustrated? Why does it feel like what I felt like was God? I felt like there was peace and I'm just not winning. And maybe it's because you're trying to win with the strategy or win with the tools that were meant for your previous season.
Dang.
Yeah.
And it's the story of Moses in Numbers. The staff that God gave him, that staff is what he raised up in part of the Red Sea, right? That same staff, God told Moses, whenever they needed water, to strike a rock, and water began to flow from that rock. And then later on in Numbers,
Yeah.
Moses said, we need water. And God said, speak to the rock and water will flow from it. But then Moses struck the rock instead
Dang.
of speaking to it.
Yeah.
God still honored it and water still flowed, but then Moses got punished because he tried to use an old strategy in a new assignment.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so even the God still, he worked his mercy, his sovereignty, he'll still use our humanity to accomplish things.
Yeah.
But there was
Yeah.
still a consequence because of his disobedience. But Moses used he did what so many of us do. He used what was familiar to try and get success in a new season based off the strategy in his last season. And so we just have to
Yeah.
acknowledge that a lot of our leadership frustration comes from trying to succeed in this season with last season strategies. And we have to
Yeah.
be okay with letting that go, letting go of how we used to be known, what we used to be known for, what
Wow.
used to garnish success, garnish promotion. This used to get attention. I used to be celebrated for doing this in the previous season, but I'm not anymore. And maybe that's because God's trying to reinvent you. He's trying to help you develop new skill sets, new strengths, new gifts that have been buried in you until now. And if you keep doing, it's just like the concept of new wine, old wineskin.
Yeah.
God is wanting to do something
Yeah.
fresh,
Yeah.
and he needs you to move with him so that he can do the new thing in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see it
love
like
that.
stripping off the old, and how like in a time of transitioning, like there is a sense of self-discovery, and you do have to leave certain aspects about how you operated, and you do have to leave it behind, and maybe you'll pick it up in a future season. But I don't know, I think it goes like really well with something Gabe and I have been talking about. We're going through a series with the life of David, and we kind of gave some context with Saul, and he said something after he disobeyed the Lord, and it was like, obedience is better than sacrifice. And I think it's kind of hitting on what we're talking about now, how obedience is our metric for success, and it's not necessarily the strategy can look different, but is the strategy in obedience with the Lord. And I mean, I just love that so much. I think it's such a great like anchor for us in a season when you have a word from the Lord, and what you not to do if you know what he told you to do. And so I like, just speaking from my own experience, like I can definitely resonate with um the I guess you could say it's like a grief. Like you have to process a little bit of grieving of the previous season. And I'd love for you to speak into this as well. I know I have left past seasons and not fully grieving leaving that past season has affected the next thing that the Lord had for me. And you see it play out in certain little aspects, and even like the way you think, it's still adapted to the previous season. And I noticed I needed to have some more time to grieve and understand. I don't know, maybe that's something somebody needs to hear now. I just, just sense that like it's okay to grieve what you left, um,
Yeah.
or not meant to stay there. Um, I think of I think of how the Lord told Samuel, like, "How long will you grieve over Saul? Go get your oil and fill your horn."
Yeah.
So there is a time where grieving does end, or when you can't stay stuck in your grief of the past season. But I think it is okay to spend some time, process what you just left, process those things, and so it does become a hindrance to your next season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, man, I think there's two types of grieving when it comes to this. And I think that like there is the grieving of transition and leaving something behind that your heart was tied to. If you're grieving, that means you were invested, right?
Mm,
If you're grieving, that means that it's like if you're being uprooted, that means you had roots planted. And
wow.
so you
Yeah.
didn't anticipate to be moved. And so there is that sense of grieving. I would also speak to, there's some people that,
Hey, if you're a pastor or leader and you want to see first time guests at your church every single Sunday, you need to schedule a discovery call with Church Candy. I'm going to put a link in the description down below where you can schedule that call today. Church Candy is a church marketing company. We will run ads for your church on Facebook and on Instagram. So if you're interested, click the link below, get your discovery call scheduled. Now, let's get back to the episode.
they haven't navigated the tension of having to transition yet. And so their grieving would be staying planted when they thought they would transition.
Oof. Yeah.
So, what I mean?
Dang.
So I think that there's not to say that maybe it's loyalty or maybe it's just God hasn't released them yet, but there's
Sure.
a grieving in some people that they're carrying because they either it's in their heart to go, maybe it's to the mission field or go do something new and different, but God hasn't released them yet. So they're having to grieve the idea of, man, I thought I would go and do something, but I have to stay planted where I am.
Yeah.
And I haven't. I feel like that is something that I've navigated because um, there have been seasons where I was at, it was I thought that God would that His timeline would have been quicker than what I
Right.
thought, right?
Right.
And so there is that sense that I know when I acknowledge some people who would feel that
Yeah.
tension of, man, God, you have been to the same place for so long and God still hasn't released you yet. And it
Yeah.
says maybe there's just some stuff that He is still developing in you that can only be developed by remaining planted. And there's no
Mm,
other way that He could get it. There's no, like, you got to stay planted,
yeah.
stay in that classroom of growth.
Wow.
Because if you jump ship, I think that you're going to have to retake the same test. You're going to stay in the same grade. You won't be able to,
Yeah.
to mature. So you have to understand there's a pain of staying planted. There's also the pain of transition. So that's we're more focused on that part too. But I just wanted to acknowledge the
Yeah.
counter side to it.
For sure.
But the pain of transition, you have to grieve it, bro. You have to grieve the success of a previous season. You have to grieve the ideas of what attributed to you being liked and fruitful in the previous season. You had
Yeah.
your strengths in the previous season, man. You were celebrated because you did this really well. You were the only one at the church who knew how to operate in this gifting, or
Mhm.
the only one at this particular career who, man, you were a joy in the workplace. And there's that sense of when you go somewhere new, you're not that person anymore. You're not that guy. You're not that girl. And
Wow.
that sucks, but God led you here. So you're like having to
Yeah.
grieve the loss of, bro, why isn't what I'm doing now like feel the same way? And I think that there is that grace to grow in a new season that we'll miss if we find identity and don't properly grieve the previous season. I think
Yeah.
there's the grieving the idea and the identity, but you also have to grieve your relationships too. because I
Mm,
think that's a
yeah.
big part of it, is that it seems like every transition is going to cost us people that we thought would always be there. And it's
Wow.
Mhm.
not them, it's not us, but every new assignment is going to sift our circle of people. Every new assignment, there's going to be a sifting. And that's probably the hardest part to grieve for me personally,
Yeah.
is people that I ran with, that I loved. I mean, I just, to be candid, like you guys, like you got to had the privilege of getting to lead with you and, lead a movement with you. We were reaching 5,000 young people every year through the camp
Mm-hmm.
and conference. And like, bro,
Yeah.
that's not a little thing. I think that's one of the largest youth gatherings in the southern part of the United States that was
Mm-hmm.
happening. And so every year, though, there would be a new group of interns that would come. For 7 years, I would develop a part of my heart that would gravitate towards people, that would graft with people. And then there would be a transition. A new group of interns would
Dang.
come in. A new group
Yeah.
of interns can come in. So there were like trust issues, especially now that I'm getting into a
Mm,
local church ministry where I'm looking at volunteers and I'm having to navigate the trauma of just having a new group of interns come every year and not know what to do with the same group, like being people planted in the same house for an extended amount of time and not worrying, all right, when are you going to leave? And so
Mm-hmm.
I think
dang.
that there is the grief of just knowing that there are some relationships that as you transition in assignments, that those relationships, there's going to be necessary endings. But you have to know that, okay, that's okay. That because people leave or because you go into a new assignment, you transition into a new role at the same place. There were people in your life that were essential for one chapter of your life, but they're not there for the whole book,
Yeah.
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 right? The way I would put it to you like this, if I could put it into a phrase, there are relationships with people in our life that they will have seasonal passes to our life, but not lifetime memberships.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm,
we have to be okay when that seasonal pass ends, just being able to grieve that and let them go and not blame them because they're no longer a part of our story, but be
Yeah.
grateful for the part that they played and
yeah.
celebrate them, celebrate it, but grieve it too. Like, man, I miss people that I used to run with. I miss that. And but I can't live there either.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I
I
feel like,
think,
oh, go
oh,
ahead.
no, you go for it, bro.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, like, I feel like that's just hitting on the concept of, keeping your heart a revolving door and not one that rests on hinges. I know one of our
Mm,
professors used to say
that's
that, and
good.
how if you try to keep people in, it's hard for everybody. It's hard to, if you try to hoard a certain circle that you have, um, you just get
Yeah.
wounded. You get people trying to barge their way out. And I think wisdom says to keep it a revolving door, keep that. I know we even talk about having specific seasons and assignments, just keeping that with an open hand,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and I think the orphan mentality says I need to hoard and keep it all for myself and as long as I can. And we don't like to let go. And I think the sonship mentality is like, God, you give and you take away, and wherever I am, if it's where you have me, it's exactly where I'm supposed to be. The people that are in my life now, they're the people that you have set to be in my life, and they're for a certain reason. And
Yeah.
I wanna hear, because I know there's certain people in your life that they do end up being like lifetime. The Lord has just knitted your hearts together,
Mm-hmm.
and there are certain people that like how we've been saying that it is a seasonal thing. So, even really quickly, if we like, I'd love to hear you touch on that. Like, how do you navigate and discern those types of people, and like, what does it really take to keep those people around? Because it is a work. Relationships do take work, and so I guess
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
asking is, how do you, um, what does it take? Is what I'm asking. What does it take
Yeah.
to keep
And
those?
sorry, I'm going to tag on to that too, because
Yeah.
one thing I've noticed as well is that during those seasons of transitions, while the relationship, like there are some relationships that just die out for lack of better words, but then there are some relationships transition. So instead of knowing someone in one role or capacity, you get to know them in a different role or capacity. Like that
Yeah.
happened to me when I stopped youth pastoring after like pastoring for 5 years. People who were my students and I was like the main voice speaking to their life. Now they have different mentors and leaders and I only know them as friends. So like it's still an effort to keep this relationship going, but just understanding that this is different now. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if both. I feel like both tie in, and like your answer might kind of address both of those. But
Yeah. I would say, just to quickly answer yours, Gabe, that part of people that you had a certain role in their life, whether it was a leader or a close friendship, and it does transition, letting go, like you just being able to make that conscious decision. Because if you keep carrying it, it's going to become an unnecessary weight in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you let go, you're not dishonoring them. It means that you are valuing God's pace over your preferences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that you're just acknowledging, I'm in a new season. They're in a new season.
Mhm.
God's doing a new thing. So I'm going to value God's pace in my life, the new rhythm and the new assignment, their new assignment, by letting go.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it doesn't mean abandoning them. We're not talking about like, forget you.
Yeah.
It's not abandoning them. It's just, I'm just gonna have to let you go. It's a necessary ending.
Yeah.
And so there's that piece of it. I'll just answer that. But going back, there was a leadership teaching when I was an intern at Elevation. Pastor Stephen did it, and he talked about the 3 levels of friendship. I just to share from that. It's never left me. I heard it once and it stuck with me. This was 14 years ago.
Mhm.
So there's 3 levels of friendships. There's comrades, constituents, and confidants. And so comrades would be people that we haven't come into our life, and it's like comrade, how you think in a military sense. We're fighting the same battle. We're going in the same direction. We're against the same enemy. We have shared interest for a season. We have aligned purpose for a season. Our interest aligned. It's like, okay, we can get on the same page about the same topic or subject for a season. Maybe we're going to get through Bible college together for a season, right? We're going to work the same job together for a season. We're going to accomplish the same goal, but it's seasonal. And you have to acknowledge, like, okay, we're not BFFs, but we're friends. We can kick it. It's okay. We can like, so it's like comrades. There's that level that I would say is very surface level. And then constituents would be like, man, we can run together. Like we can move together. There's shared purpose. That would be like, you're able to go a little bit deeper than someone that would be in that first tier comrade. And constituents, you can trust them. You can accomplish assignments together. You can celebrate wins together. You can work through losses together, but it's just missing the specific level of friendship where it's not covenantal. And I think that third level confidant, that's where you have covenant friends, covenant relationships, where I can trust you with not just the pretty parts of me, not just the easy parts of me, but the hardest, messiest parts of who I am. And because of our covenant that we have with one another, because of the deepness of our relationship, that it's like God ordained, it's David and Jonathan, or Jonathan and his armor bearer. There's that level of, well, do whatever is in your heart to do. I'm with you, heart and soul. And those are incredibly rare, man. I think if you could count on one hand, like people that would be considered that confidant level at the end of your life, you have won at the game of life. I think that the reason I share those 3 levels is because it's kind of helped me be able to discern when I get around people. I want them to be a confidant. I want to be like covenant relationship. I want this to be a lifelong friendship. But once I realize, oh man, it's not, I stop holding them to the standard that is unfair expectation for them. An example that going through Bible college, this was a scenario maybe you can relate to, is like there will be moments where I got a prophetic word, or God gave me just a vision or an idea or a dream, and it was so personal, so sacred to me. And I would bring it to somebody. I'd be like, bro, let me share something that God showed me. And they'd be like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, God spoke something like that to me too. Or like, yeah, man, it reminds me of this one time. Like, yeah, no, that's that. Yeah, like I got a word like that from God too. And it's like, it's met with just a general response. And when I share those intimate parts of my relationship with God, and it's met with generalities, that's when I knew, all right, this isn't a covenant relationship. But it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't mean I'm just going to know, okay, this is just meant to be a seasonal friendship. When you have people that you're like, this is a covenant or confidant relationship, a covenant relationship, it it's all about intentionality. And so the closest people that I've had in my life, the majority of our friendship has been long distance. We haven't had proximity. It's been work, but it's been worth it. And it requires the communication, like any healthy relationship. It
Yeah.
requires investment. It requires, my wife and I are so big on that to where like it used to be, if we have money for vacation, we're going to go see these people that we have covenant with instead of going to like a dream destination.
Mhm.
It's just because we know we have that with some people, very select people. I want to have that same thing 40 years from now. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think that's a whole separate podcast we could do, but that's just a quick answer from hopefully that answers your question. It
No, that's
doesn't raise
amazing.
more questions.
No, that's really good. I mean, because yeah, relationships do take work, and I feel like that's a place where a lot of disappointment can come from when you confuse those three. I wrote them down, like comrades, constituents, and
Confidence.
confidants. So like, I think when you desperately want someone to be a higher tier and it doesn't turn out to be that way, I mean, I think this is just a really good practical tool that you just gave. Like, it's essentially it's like setting expectations,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
understanding that people are there for a different season, a different assignment. I love how you're putting that. I guess when it to bring it back to center here, when we're talking about different environments and going into a different season of life, there are people who uh, have to adjust to you, and it's still in that season where or that phase, I guess you could say, where you're still finding these people. And I've had this experience, as I'm sure all of you have, and maybe those of you watching, where you enter a different season and you don't necessarily feel that welcome that you thought you were.
Oh,
It's hard for people it's hard to
yeah.
get blended in.
Mm.
And there's people that stuff to get used to how you are, and you're getting used to how they are, and there's a tension that you have to hold for a while until it gets, I guess, ironed out. And so I've definitely experienced that, and it's a little hard. At least for me, like, it's hard, like, am I wrong? It really makes you like look inward, and it's like, am I just or I don't know, horrible
Am I
person, or
weird? Do I
am I
suck?
weird?
Did I hear God incorrectly?
Literally, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'd love to kind of take the conversation here, especially like when it comes to transitioning, and maybe you're still shedding off some old things, and so I'd love to hear you kind of speak to that. Like, what do you do when your environment, not only is it different, but it's a little bit more harsher, or maybe it's not as welcoming as you would hope so, and there's expectations that you had, and I mean, I'd,
Mm.
I'd love to hear what you say to that. That might be a
Uh,
loaded question, so
no, it's such a it's such a real pain, bro. I know it all too well, whether it was transitioning from being a guy that was at Elevation to CF and I, and like no one knew Elevation at the time, right? It was still young. So I'm like, yeah, I was a part of this mega church. And it was like, who cares? And I was
yeah.
like, okay. And so like starting over. All right. And then going from when I was a student at CFNI, I was just a videographer. I had never been seen as someone with leadership skills. I was just I ran what was called the Student Informer for 2.5 years. And so when they announced me as the YFN assistant director, everyone's like, the video guy?
No.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that was my reputation. And like
Yeah.
ran a social media account and student news, and I had to navigate that. And then, from assistant director to director, and going from different ministries and having to start over. It's been a process, and it's not easy. It is hard. It is hard work, bro. You have to acknowledge when you go to somewhere, especially another ministry or any workplace that you're called to work at, you you have to humble yourself, and you have to become the student of that place instead of you expecting to be the main subject and other people study you.
Mm.
I think we'll carry that main character energy from one season to another and just come in and expect everybody to get to know us. It's not their job to get to know us, it's our job to get to know them.
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
we're seeking to be understood, right? Instead of seeking to understand. And it's like, I've messed that
Wow.
up. I've
Yeah.
messed that up, man. I have not handled some of those transitions, right? Where I came in ready to make moves and assumed people knew me, knew my intention, knew my heart, and just I burnt unnecessary bridges because I didn't make myself a student of the culture, a student of the history, a student of the people. I didn't build relational equity with the people
Mm-hmm.
that I was making decisions that would affect them. And man, it cost cost so much unnecessary damage to where if I had just again humbled myself, it didn't matter what success or fruit I had in my previous season. I had to get to know the people that I was called to in this season.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I'm so grateful. The church I'm at now, my pastor, he's such a wise man. He brought us here and he brought us here but didn't have us start doing anything for the first few months. Like
Wow.
Mm.
literally, he's like, I just want you to attend the church. We know what you're gonna do. They know you're gonna. We had the roles established; they're in place. But he's like, I just want you to become a student of this house. And so, literally, bro, I was attending
Wow.
church like any other member. I was going through our growth classes, our discipleship classes. I'm showing up to our conferences in general, entry, like no special treatment, just so I could learn the people, build relational equity.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that, man, I'm so grateful for that because it allowed us to get a heart for this place and get to know the history from this place at such a raw and intimate level. And not everybody's going to have the luxury of doing that, but I got to experience the benefit of that because our pastor had enough fortitude and insight to say, hey, I know I hired you, but let me just spend a short season just learning this place. And
Mm-hmm.
I wish everybody could have that experience because
Yeah.
I know how much fruit that's brought. Just not, yeah, just what I've gotten to learn about the church that we're called to serve from that, just having a seat in the house, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So while you speak about transition, I feel like a topic that keeps coming up that I really want to hone in on is the leadership that you experience in those transitions, like coming in and out of that. Uh, Tell us why you think that's important for anybody who's like walking through transition, having people who can speak into your life, having someone who is over you and someone you honor and someone you trust when it comes to how you settle in to that new
Yeah, it's so
season.
good. Uh, I forget the exact chapter and verse, so forgive me, but in the New Testament it says I believe, hopefully it's the New Testament, there is wisdom in a multitude of counselors. And so
Mm.
it's just being able to invite people into your journey close enough to adequately speak to it. And I think a lot of times we only go to the leaders that we will go to the leaders that'll tell us what we want to hear.
Mm,
We'll go to people that will support our narrative of whatever, like, I feel like I'm supposed to transition here. You know my story. Instead of having the same person that's going to navigate each transition with you, it can call out some of your red flags or your blind spots. And so leadership, especially the people that would be outside of wherever you're serving, I think is a huge role, or even confidant relationships that can help you see some of your tendencies that maybe you don't see, can help you navigate tension, help you navigate, hey, is this somewhere I'm supposed to remain planted through a tough situation, or
yeah.
is God calling me out, and kind of help you have an outside perspective to it. But yeah, the leaders that you would serve under, I've had the privilege of serving under some of the greatest leaders in the world, man,
Yeah.
in every season. And um, I'm just honored that I've gotten to serve at a place like CFNI, man, with such incredible legacy, right? Like just the Lindsay family and what they've been able to accomplish on the earth for the sake of Christ. Getting to serve at Church LV under Pastor Benny, Pastor Winnie Perez, just who they are and what they have stewarded, the move of God that's happening at that church, the presence of God, the encounter that people have there, man. There's just nothing like it. And so getting to serve under them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I'm just where I'm at now, man. It's like every season feels like the best season. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it's perfect at all, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not without trials. It's not without pain. No one, I have scars from every season, even before going
Yeah.
to college. Like I got scars, bro. There's definitely there's pain, but I'm just so grateful that God has, I think you got to look back at your life and see no matter what kind of place you end up at, no matter what kind of assignment you have, no matter what kind of leadership you're under, it's never wasted in the kingdom. And I think that sometimes we just have to see that every type of leader, every type of title, every type of position, whether you're just the video guy or not,
Yeah.
it's never wasted. There was a craft that I developed being a videographer that formed how I develop my sermons in this season as a preacher.
Wow.
Wow.
There's a way that I can work with my creative team in how we do social media posts and then special videos on the weekends.
Mhm.
Because I had a season as a videographer, I know how to talk to them. I know the process. I know how to work with them. So there's I don't think anything's wasted in the kingdom, and that goes for every aspect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, while we have you, I have this thought that keeps coming up because earlier we were talking about how like seasons essentially they can reveal a lot about you. I'm honestly really curious, in what are some things that you learned about yourself and moving from season to season? And I know um there's certain things that come up and the Lord just starts revealing things about yourself, especially in a different season when it looks completely different and you have to come to terms with that. I'm really curious, what are some things that you learned about yourself, or maybe some things that the Lord brought up to the surface, and how the Lord has, you know, ministered to those areas or guided you through those areas. And I don't know, I feel like that would be really helpful for other people who may be struggling with that as well, of not even understanding why is this coming up? Why does this keep coming up in this new season? What is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
And I'd really love to hear you speak to that.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify, I don't think all of my answers are anecdotal. So for those that are listening, this is all from my experience. So
Sure. Yeah.
I just want to make sure people know, I don't, I'd love to walk people through the transitions, and I've had the privilege of doing that. But I know that there's a lot of our situations are nuanced too. So just to
Yeah, for
preface
sure.
that, maybe I should have put that disclaimer at the beginning. But this is what I've learned. I've had to focus less on what I'm actually doing and more on who I am becoming.
Mm,
I've had to shift my focus on what I'm doing, my job title, what's going to sound good to everybody when I make the announcement on the hard launch of my post on social media of my
Wow.
new season. And I've had to focus on
sheesh.
who is Micah becoming
Yeah.
Wow.
in this season. And whether it's a season where it's been nothing but positive and special and glamorous, or a season where it's been hard,
Mhm.
tumultuous, painful. It's who is Micah becoming? And this was a lesson that I got to learn very early on, and it stuck with me ever since. So when I was interning, going back to the season at Elevation, when I interned there, Pastor Stephen had an idea for a video, or I think it was a prop for a sermon on the weekend, and he specifically wanted a black chalkboard, a blackboard, and so we didn't have one. So when we went to go look online to figure out where we could buy one, you couldn't just go to the store and buy one. And so what we did was we bought a green chalkboard, and we had to buy black chalk paint and paint it black. So got it to the church. I'm in the back, I'm painting it black, and it was for the next day. The next morning, put the first coat on there. It's 4:30 p.m. It's approaching the end of the day. Get the first coat on there and realize, oh, this is going to take a lot of coats. It's not settling very well. And so I literally kept applying coat after coat, let it set, let it dry, another coat, let it set, let it dry, another coat. I had to spend the night at the church so that I could get enough coats
Oh my
of
gosh.
paint on this chalkboard so that it would be ready the next morning for
I definitely
the
would have called it
project.
quits. I'm going to expose myself. I would have gone home and be like, all right, we'll figure it out in the morning.
Bro, I stayed, man. I slept for about 2 hours in between putting coats on. on the couch that was in the green room,
Wow.
and went to Target the next morning, bought a fresh set of clothes, put them on, and went back to work the next day.
Amazing.
Got excited for the video shoot, or it was a video shoot or a sermon. I can't remember which one, but I got excited because I was like, for everybody to see it. Like, dude, it looked amazing. It was like, I made it happen. Let's go. And he changed his mind. He didn't want to use a blackboard.
Oh God. Oh
And
man, that
so
hurt.
I loaded the chalkboard, couldn't return it because it was painted. So I took it to our warehouse and put it in
Man.
storage. And I had a decision to make. I could either get upset because what I did wasn't going to be seen or valued, or I could say, Mike is the type of person that will stay as long as it takes and do whatever it takes to
Wow.
make something happen.
Yeah.
And I
Amazing.
think that moment was a defining moment
Mm-hmm.
for me in every season I've stepped into. Is Mike is not going to be perfect. He's not going to get it right every time. But he will do whatever it takes to get the job done.
That's so
And
good.
he'll finish what he starts. And so that's, I think, again, just a personal experience of, I think, what will help a lot of people, and what's helped me looking back on my journey is you just have to focus on who you're becoming more than what you're doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
I feel like that's something I mean, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh my God, I've heard that so many times, like, of God cares more about who you're becoming than where you're going. And I feel like just as soon as you said that, it just brought to my memory, like, how important the process really is more than the destination. Like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
what God is pulling to the surface. And like, because if you go into the next season underdeveloped, if you want to say it that way, you may just fumble what God has put in your hands, you know? But it's
Exactly.
really like, whatever you're doing and whoever you're becoming in this season, it's not a waste. And I mean, I've been in seasons where I feel like, man, like, why am I still here? This feels like such a waste of time. And then you step into the next thing and you realize that nothing I was necessarily doing may have been the reason, but maybe the Lord was building grit inside of me. Maybe he was building a prayer life in me, you know.
Yeah.
And we get so caught up in the actions, the small things that we're doing, and it's literally the jacket on, jacket off thing, you know. Like, you're from
Mr.
Karate Kid.
Miyagi?
Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
doing it and doing it and doing
Oh,
it.
so you're quoting the Jaden Smith one, so that's Mr. Han.
I'm quoting the Jaden Smith one.
The
yeah.
wax on, wax off.
It's
type beat.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And-
think it's, I don't know if it's because we're going through like First Samuel. Like, it's just kind of like that thing we're doing right now, Alex, but it just brings me back to David again, where David was anointed king in chapter 16, and he doesn't take the throne till like 2 Samuel, a whole book later. And had he been elevated to that status, God would have never been able to work out the Saul in him, and he would have been just a repeat. But it was those moments of just being in the caves, being with his men, just being persecuted. God was working out every single thing out of David that David needed to take that throne, to be the king that God wanted him to be. And even in that, I mean, we see all the shortcomings of David. So like, if David went through that whole process and God still just had more to prune, I don't know why we might feel that we're exempt of that pruning process, or why we might feel like, oh, God, I'm ready for it now, instead of kind of humbly submitting and just being like, Lord, whatever it takes to get me there, I'm submitted to
Yeah.
this process, no matter what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think of the disciples, how they were literal fishermen before they became fisher of men, how Jesus
Mhm.
called them into. And I can just imagine the tools that they collected being fishermen, the patience. I mean, they discipled people who we still have their writings to this day, and the patience it takes. I mean, you get a lot of patience fishing. We know they stayed up all night sometimes trying to catch fish, and so I can just even think of the patience. I'm sure they had conversations with themselves. They probably got really good at conversation and talking and whatever else. And so I think it just really speaks to God does not waste a season. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like that is an encouragement to somebody listening that, just reiterating what PM said, just God is more focused on who you're becoming. If it's hard to have hope for the next season, or even have hope for your current season, I would say it's like lean into it, lean into the tension, and lean into, uh, the heart of God. What's He doing in me, and what can I do, right, to not hinder that, to not try to delay that myself. I don't know, man, that really encouraged me as soon as you said that, because I mean, I think being in a season for so long, you think things are going to change. And especially like when you have words or there's, prophetic words where you're still waiting on. And I mean, as soon as you said it, like earlier in the podcast, where there's a grief of why am I still here? Um, and I mean, I feel like that is so many people listening right now. Like, why am I still here?
Or why
Especially after
hasn't the
God has,
situation changed?
right? Like God has
Yeah.
spoken so much into my life. Like, why is this taking so long? And God takes his sweet time. We said it in our previous podcast. He does crock pot prophecies, and they just sit in there and they marinate, and you can smell it coming, but it's not ready yet. And I don't know. God just has his own timeline, and it's just about being submitted in everything. And I mean, PM, as you're talking, you're talking about how you stayed overnight to just get the fresh coat. I mean, that does not sound at all out of character from the time that I've known you. I mean, you are definitely someone who, like, whatever you're doing, you give 100% of it, and that's something I've always admired. I know you don't, you know, put half foot in and half foot out, even if it's a tough season, even if there's challenges. It's admirable of how 100% you give of yourself, and I know the Lord will and has honored that, and I just want to honor that just here
Thank you, man.
publicly, and just it's admirable and it's inspiring to see how you steward the season.
Thank you,
Yeah,
man.
for sure.
Thank you.
Is there any encouragement you want to leave our people with before we, I guess, like close out?
Are we at the wrapping it up stage?
Well, actually,
we can keep going if
we can keep going. I just had a really like important question that's totally off topic. So I was like,
Okay.
man, do I
I'll
save
answer this
for...
first.
Okay,
and then
cool.
you can ask me the question. So I'm just reminded, I guess there's two tensions that we live in. There is the pain of remaining and then the pain of uprooting. And so that tension of staying where you're supposed to stay, even though you're like, man, I want to transition. There's a lot of people listening. They're like praying for transition, but God's saying, no, not yet. And there's other people that are transitioning, whether they're out of their own accord, they're transitioning, or they're being transitioned. There's pain both ways. But what I've learned, there's a book called Leadership Pain. It says pain is the classroom of growth. And so
that's good.
There's nobody who's done anything significant in the kingdom of God that did not first suffer great pain. And so the pain of transition means God is moving you. The pain of remaining is, can you outlast the questions, the doubts, the concerns? Can you remain when it's hard? Can you remain faithful and loyal? And I love Pastor Benny Perez says, if you want to become God's person, you have to go through God's process.
Yeah.
And that's like you're saying the story of David. He had to go through God's process so that he could become God's person, the person that Israel needed.
Yeah.
And then I'm also reminded of what my pastor says, Pastor Josiah Silva. He says, and sometimes people keep you where they meet you. And so there's a lot of times where
Dang,
you'll
wait,
be
can you say that
growing.
slower?
Hold on.
Say it.
Hold on,
Rewind it back.
stop.
Yeah, please.
Say it again.
Say it one more time for the people in the
that
back.
just hit me, bro.
Wow.
People will keep you where they meet you. This is the story of Jesus when he goes back to his hometown.
Yeah.
And he wanted to perform miracles. And they said, is this not Mary's son? Is this not the son of the carpenter? And it says Jesus could not do many miracles there because of their familiarity, their lack of honoring the new assignment that he was in. So many of us, there will be a cap that people will put on us because of when they first met us. Oh, you were just Gabe. You were just Alex. You were just, man, what do you mean you guys got a podcast that's reaching thousands? What do you mean what do you mean you're hosting, you're interviewing? And they'll keep you where they met you. and they can't see beyond, they can't see the growth. And I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of us who would navigate the pain, whether it's from loved ones, it's from family. They can't
Mhm.
see what God's doing in our life, leaders or friends from previous seasons. And we have to be, again, just grieving those relationships of knowing that sometimes people, they won't see the growth, they won't see the assignment,
Mm.
they won't see the new thing, and they'll keep us where they met us, and that's hard too. That's a whole
Dang.
nother
Yeah.
tension that we have to navigate.
So can we
Yeah.
add like 45 minutes to unpack this right now? Okay. That's
Part
crazy.
two.
Why would you drop a bomb on us like last?
That way you can tell everybody, hey, stay to the end.
I'm saying.
You
No,
won't believe what he ended with.
there's something I thought about, like, as we were talking, like, so Gabe knows I really got into plants. And so
Yeah, he's got like a bunch of plants in
I
his
got a
home.
bunch of plants.
I'm not gonna dox you or anything,
Fascinating.
but it's crazy. I walked in, there was a forest, and I loved it. But
You're a
became a plant
horticulturist?
is that the word?
Are you there? That's the word.
My floor mat right before you get in my house says, "Hope you like plants." So
Are these medicinal plants, or are they?
There's one that's an air purifier.
I don't think that's legal in
Oh.
Texas.
Yeah.
I know it's illegal in California. We're like,
Oh,
where you're at.
100%.
No,
It's kind of
No.
crazy.
It's like philodendron and a monstera that I love.
I'm gonna pretend I know what those words are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure. No, but honestly, learning a lot about how to care for plants. You know, when God just gives you a sermon illustration, so I was like, I'm gonna take note of that. No, but in all seriousness, there was something that I like as I was like taking care of like my plants, that I realized something that it's very nuanced, and taking care of my monstera, that if you keep your plant in a pot for too long, it'll adapt and you'll have a bunch of roots that just don't have any more soil. It's kind of it's where you outgrew its pot. And if you were to take it out, all you see is roots. You just stop seeing soil because it has soaked up so much, has absorbed so much.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is monsteras, they actually do thrive a lot with aerated soil. So you're not necessarily supposed to give it really dense soil. You're supposed to mix it in with like some rocks and some perlite, and it just kind of adds space to the soil. And so whenever it's kind of tangled up and there's like a lot of root, it actually helps it thrive for just a little bit, where you still see growth coming from the plant,
Wow.
even though there's no more soil. However, if you leave it there for long enough, the more you water it, if you continue to water it, even in a place where it was thriving, eventually the roots will start to rot because there's not enough soil for it to be soaked up in. And so I just
Preaching
think
now,
about
man. Come on
I
now.
just think about how there's so many people, and I've been in this situation before, where you may be thriving in a certain environment, in a certain place where maybe the Lord did have you at a time, but comfortability and staying there, you'll only see like a small window where things are still growing, things are
Yeah.
still going well. I mean, the Lord has called me out of good seasons before, but
Yeah.
I think what people tend to experience is like root rot in their life, where now the things that used to be easy don't come easy anymore. I think this is the period where you see the grace has lifted.
That's it.
And it's like even the burden begins to leave, and it even starts to dig away. You may start getting a lot more challenges coming your way. And I think this is like symptoms of root rot, where
Wow.
amazing,
man.
a resource
So
that
good.
came to you, something that was being poured into you and it was doing you good, eventually you will outgrow it, and it rots the very root that was supposed to bring you life. And that hit me one day when I was taking care of that, because it's such a tension that you have to hold. Like, just because I'm seeing growth doesn't mean that there is still rot on the way. And so what you have to do is obviously uproot it, and you have to untangle the roots at the bottom. And so there's a lot of I think this is where in a
Wow,
season of
bro.
life, there's disorientation. There's
Yeah.
what's going on. Like, this was a system that was working well, but you have to disrupt the bottom so that it can fully receive the fresh soil that's put into the next bigger pot so that it can continue to grow. And so I don't know, the Lord he speaks to me in these types of ways. And I was like, wow, God, like I need to make sure I'm not just staying in an environment because it's still bringing growth. It could end up hurting me and it
Yep.
could be harmful to me. And so, I mean, I try my best, avoid root rot. I would just say that as an encouragement to anyone else. Don't get your roots rotted.
That's the
Embrace
most
the new.
plant dad thing I've ever heard you say, but I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
No, that is deep, bro. And there's a book behind that. Like there's depth to that. I think you could definitely expound on it even more, because there's so many layers to what you just said, and you could that would bring healing to people's life and speak to them. And I think that the detanglement, man. It's like we are all going to go through seasons that we never would have chosen for ourselves. That's going to bring pain and it's going to hurt. It's going to have that tanglement that we have to have detanglement. And one of the things for me that's helped me with detanglement is getting a therapist and having someone who knows how the mind works in psychology and being able to help me detangle the pain that I've been through, going all the way back to high school, bro. So like just being able to make sure I'm the healthiest version of Micah that I can be for the people that God's called me to lead. And so, and then you just say people outgrow where they're called to be and they don't want to leave, and it leads to the root rot, bro. That's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, Gabe, I don't know what happened to your thing.
My camera's out. I'm gonna throw this question out there. You can put a stick figure drawing in my place at the end of this.
Funny.
PM, here's the $1 million question: Disneyland or Disney World?
Disney World. 100%.
You're not gonna make any Californians upset with this one?
Is World bigger?
No, I will for sure, but I'm willing to die on that hill.
Okay, where's the food better, Disneyland or Disney World?
Disney World.
Disney World wins again. All right,
again.
Where are the rides better, Disneyland or Disney World?
The Disneyland does have a few rides that are unique there, but they're not worth, if you had to choose between one or the other, Disney World for sure.
You promise you're not rage baiting right now?
I promise you.
Okay.
I love Disneyland because I live here, and I can drive to, it's 22 minutes away from my house, and it's still Disney.
Oh,
like you get the essence of it, like it's still there. But I think one reason we started with Disney World, and so that's all we knew for the first part of our getting introduced to Disney adulthood, and dude, the culture there is just different than the one in California. So let's make sure that I'm gonna redo this for the what is it called? You said rage baiting?
Rage baiting.
Yeah, rage baiting. Disney World is better than Disneyland. Anybody that thinks otherwise is an imbecile. And I'm just kidding. No, it's great. We love Disney, but Disney World is better.
Oh man,
I haven't been to either, so can't say
yeah,
anything.
I guess if you like Disney, then
no.
Some people have a really
Alex,
low opinion of Disney adults. And that's
we
fine.
need to go. Oh, hey, we want to make sure that you plug your Disney exclusive Instagram, because
That's true. Yeah,
I'm a fan. I love seeing those updates. You gotta post more. But PM,
Disney
thanks
Magic
again.
Micah.
Yeah, there we go. So include the link in the description. We want to make sure we plug that.
yeah,
Gosh.
yeah. Well, PM, thank you so much for joining us, and I've been blessed by this conversation. Transition is like something so relevant to my life right now, and I know it's going to bless so many people that are listening to this. And thank you for your wisdom and your perspective that you were able to share. And just thank you for joining us.
Yeah, man, it's such an honor. I hope it speaks to people who are navigating the transition, like yourself, who this just kind of helps them navigate it with a little bit more insight, a little bit more grace. And just to speak to anybody who's navigating it right now, whether you chose it or it's happening to you, I just want to encourage you: God never wastes a season,
Amen.
and you're not being punished. You're not being demoted. God is developing you. He's pruning you. He's preparing you. Don't measure your success or even your effectiveness by the fruit of your last season.
Mm,
It's not about getting it perfect, even if you're suffering the results of not stewarding your last season well. It's not about perfection. Surrender it to God. Live from that place of obedience. Live from that place of, Lord, I want to be obedient to you in this season. Use whatever you can from my last season, and
yeah.
I'll honor you and bring glory to you. And so, I would just pray for anybody that's in this season, whether it's the pain of remaining or the pain of transitioning. Can I just pray for them real
Yeah.
quick?
Yeah. I
Is
was
that
about to
fine?
ask you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, so God, I just lift up every single person who's listening or who this happens to reach, and Lord, I pray that you would meet them in the middle of their pain, whether it's the navigating transition, the tension of leaving what was into what is, uh, questioning whether or not they're hearing from you. If you're in what's next, God, I just pray that your presence would become so real to them, that it would become that your peace would surround them and lead them, that you would speak to them through the right avenues, whether it's from the leadership in their life, whether it's from getting before you in their word and submitting their time and their attention to you. Lord, I pray that your peace would lead them into the right places, and that there would not be a single season that they've gone through that you cannot use, God, that you would pull from even seasons that they thought were wasted, even seasons that they thought that you couldn't redeem. God, I pray that you would redeem everything that they thought was lost, that you would take the
Mm,
foolish things and confound the wise, and that you would pull things from seasons on seasons on seasons ago in this season, God, that there would be just a whole tool belt of resources that you have used, because God, we know you are more focused on who we are becoming than what we're doing, and that we would just all be content and celebrate our obedience and our surrender more than the numbers, that it may be small on paper, but it's not small in the kingdom. And God, that we would continue to trust you with our process. In Jesus' name, amen.
amen. Well, thank you so much, PM, for
Amen.
joining us. This has been an amazing conversation. And anyone watching, if this has blessed you, be sure to give a like or a comment. Let us know what about it, what spoke to you, what resonated with you, and be sure to share with a friend that you think this would be relevant to. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys on the next one.